Pleasant day to each and everyone. My name is Monique S. Denzel. Together with Shaana Acosta, we will be presenting the customs of the Tagalogs that is found in the Readings in Philippine History, pages 56 to 69. But before we dive in, let's first know who wrote these chapters and why did he write this. Let's find out. Author of the customs of the Tagalog is no other than Juan de Plasencia. First and primarily, the author Juan de Plasencia was not a local Tagalog, but a Franciscan missionary who came in the Philippines in 1577. Take note, hindi siya Pilipino, isa siyang Spanish, na inutusan ng hari ng Spain to document the customs and traditions of the colonized natives based on his judgments and own observations. The real name of Juan de Plasencia is Fray Juan de Puerto Carrero del Convento de Villanueva de la Serena. Fray Juan was born to the illustrious family of Portugueros in Plasencia in the region of Extremadura, in Spain, in the early 16th century.
Please take note of these terms because we will encounter this along our discussion. Customs of the Tagalogs. Customs of the Tagalogs was written on the year 1589 during the Spanish colonial period, where it tackled the practice and traditions of the Tagalogs during the Spanish period. Customs of the Tagalogs is a part of longer monographs. When we say monographs, it is a special type of book that focuses only for a single topic, mainly for research work or research purposes. Customs of the Tagalogs was written by the chroniclers of the Spanish expeditions to the Philippines during the early 16th and 17th centuries. So, meaning, sinulat siya ng mga Spanish historians during the early 16th and 17th centuries. Customs of the Tagalogs also appeared initially in Blair and Robert Zorn's 55 volumes, The Philippine Islands 1903, and in the Philippine Journal of the Sciences 1958. Customs of the Tagalogs contains numerous information that historians could use in reconstructing the political and socio-cultural history of the Tagalog region. Meaning, yung Customs of the Tagalogs, naglalaman ito siya ng mga impormasyon na magagamit ng mga historian upang buuin muli ang or magbuo muli ng political structure or socio-cultural structure sa kasaysayan ng Tagalog. And it also described the political, social, economic, and cultural practices of the Filipinos before they were Christianized. So, sa monograph na ito, nakasaad kung papaano ang pamamahala o pamamalakad ng mga liderato noon at pamumuhay ng mga Filipino. Okay. During that time, Filipinos were governed by a datu. Each population of Filipinos were called barangay. And in each barangay, there is a datu governing them. So we have here the three castes. First one is Maharlika, second, Aliping na Mamahay, third, Aliping sa Gigilid. Maharlika, they are the highest among the social classes. They don't have to pay taxes and they give tribute to the datu. Pinakamataas na antas na uri ng tao noong unang panahon. Aliping na Mamahay, the commoners, they are free and they cannot be slaves nor sold. So, itong mga aliping na mamahay, makikita mo to sila sa household, sa isang household, kung saan naninilbihan sila. Pero ang kaibahan lang nila sa aliping sa gigilid is that pwede sila magkaroon ng sarili nilang ari-arian, gold, and wealth. Aliping sa gigilid, the slave. Aliping sa gigilid, sila yung pinakamababang uri sa antas ng mga tao. So let's proceed to situations. Situation number 1. Those who are Maharlikas on both the father's and mother's side continue to be forever, and if it happens that they should become slaves, it is through marriage. So, pag ang tatay at nanay mo ay Maharlika, since then, ikaw bilang anak, Maharlika ka rin. Kasi ang pagiging Maharlika ay hereditary. Situation 2. If Maharlikas had children among their slave, their children and their mothers become free. So, kapag ang Maharlika, ang sabi dito, kapag ang Maharlika nagkaroon ng anak sa isang alipin, ang mga bata ay ang mga bata at ang kanilang ina, they will be freed from slavery. So, situation 3. So, dito, pag ang Maharlika ay nakabuntis ng isang slave woman na mula sa ibang master, ang slave woman na yun ay magko-compensate sa master niya to give half of her gold tail. So, in this case, ang bata, ang anak ng slave woman, if recognized by his father, half free siya, half slave. Situation 4. If a free woman had children by a slave, they were all free provided he were not her husband. So, kapag ang free woman dito, tinutukoy is yung aliping na mamahay, kapag nagkaroon siya ng anak sa slave sa isang sagigilid, lahat sila malaya sa kondisyong hindi ang sagigilid ang kanyang asawa. So, meaning, hindi sila pwede magpakasal. So, if two persons married of whom one was a maharlika and the other a slave, it's either namamahay or sagigilid, the children were divided. The first, third, and fifth belonged to the father, while the second, fourth, and sixth fell to the mother, and so on. So, kapag ang dalawang tao, kunyari, ang lalaki ay namamahay, at ang babae naman ay maharlika, silang dalawa ay nagpakasal, yung magiging anak nila, yung first, third, and fifth ay mapupunta sa tatay, which is yung namamahay, at ang second, fourth, and sixth ay mapupunta sa nanay, which is ang maharlika. Ganon din, kapag maharlika naman ang tatay, mapupunta ang first, third, and fifth sa maharlika, at ang second, fourth, and sixth naman mapupunta sa gigilid or sa namamahay. Situation 5. Maharlikas could not, after marriage, move from one village to another without paying a certain fee in gold as arranged among them. So, ang mga maharlika, hindi sila maaaring lumipat ng ibang baryo without paying a certain fee nang walang kapalit, no? Usually, ang mga kapalit nito is double the price. When one married a woman of another village, the children were afterwards divided equally between the two barangays. For example, si Juan na taga sitio Batong Bakal, tapos may ipinakasalan siyang babae na pangalanan nating Maria na taga sitio Maasin, no? So yung magiging mga anak nila mahahati kapag sila nagkaanak ng 12. So mahahati 'yon, 6 sa sitio Batong Bakal, 6 din sa sitio Maasin. So last one is, investigations made and sentences passed by the dato must take place in the presence of those his barangay. So, kung ano man yung mapaghuhukom, desisyon, or mga investigasyon na isinagawa ng dato, dapat makonduct yun siya sa kinaroroonan ng kanilang barangay. So, dadako tayo sa laws. They had laws by which they condemned to death a man of low birth who insulted the daughter or wife of a chief, likewise witches and others of the same class. So, hahatulan ng kamatayan ang kung sino mang mangiinsulto, ang kung sino mang lalaking mangiinsulto sa anak na babae o sa asawa ng dato. So as for the witches, they killed them and their children, and accomplices became slaves of the chief after he had made some recompense to the injured person. So pinapatay nila ang mga witches at mga kasabwat nito, ginagawang alipin na kung sino man ang nakadampot sa kanila. Other offenses are punished by fines in gold, which not paid with promptness, expose the culprit to serve until the payment should be made, person aggrieved to whom the money was to be paid. So, kapag ikaw nagkasala, sisingilin ka ng malaki, doble ang singil. Tapos, hindi basta-basta mababayaran ang sala na, hindi basta-basta mapipiyansahan, dapat maghirap ka pa hanggang sa mabayaran mo talaga yung utang na yon. Half the cultivated lands and all the products belong to the master, and the master will provide the culprit with food and clothing, thus enslaving him and his children. So, ito sa taong na agrabyado to, no? So, sa taong na agrabyado to, no? So, kalahati ng nalikom mong lupa ay belong sa master, and halos lahat ng ari-arian mo ay sa kanya na rin. Liban sa pagbayad ng gold, sa pag-serve, ganito rin ang mangyayari, no? Kapag nang agrabyado ka. May karapatan yung naagrabyado na kunin yung kalahati ng nalikom mong lupa at lahat ng ari-arian mo. Half the cultivated lands and all the products belong to the master. The master will provide the culprit with food and clothing, thus enslaving him and his children. So, na-mention na nga ito sa previous slide. So, dito naman tayo sa the master will have the possession of the children if ever the payment could not be met by the father. So, pwede ang mangyayari pa, pwedeng ang mga anak ang magbayad ng utang kapag hindi ito nabayaran ng tatay or kapag namatay ang kanilang mga magulang. Masusure. Loans. The debtor will give half of his cultivated lands and profits until the debt has been paid, or else he is condemned to a life of toil and becomes a slave. After the father's death, the children will continue to pay the debt, or else the payment will be doubled. So as mentioned earlier, pag namatay ang tatay, mapapasa pa rin ang utang sa mga anak. Babayaran pa rin ng mga anak ang utang ng kanilang ama. Inheritances. Legitimate children of a father and mother will be inherited equally, not unless the father and mother showed a slight partiality by gifts, such as to 3 taels or a jewel. So, ang mga totoong anak, most probably sa mga maharlika to applicable, no? Yung mga totoong anak, makakatanggap sila ng fair inherit. Pantay yung manang makukuha nila, not unless nag-show ng favor or nag-show ng bias yung parents nila, such as by giving gifts or sinosobran yung pagbigay ng tails or pagbibigay ng mga alahas. Dowry. Dowries are given by men to the woman's parents before marriage. If the parents are both alive, they both enjoy the use of it. So, usually, lalaki talaga yung nagbibigay ng dowry sa mga kababaihan to honor them, no? Or regalo yun ng mga kalalakihan sa parents ng bride, ng future bride niya. Be greater than the sum given to the other sons. Pero pag nagkaroon siya ng anak sa slave woman without any legitimate child, yung anak niya sa slave woman na yon ay makaka-inherit ng magkakaroon ng mana. Second is isa anaba. If ever he had children by an unmarried woman, she will still receive a dowry but is not considered as a real wife, and her children are said to be natural children. So if ever na nagkaanak siya tapos hindi sila kasal sa babae na yun, yung babae makaka-receive pa rin ng dowry pero yung anak nila hindi siya mako-consider as legitimate child. So sa third one, so sa case na to may adultery nagaganap, no. Ang babae while buntis pa siya sa anak niya, sa husband niya, nangabit. So, ang mangyayari ngayon, pag nahuli ng husband yung asawa niya, maaaring ibalik yung dowry sa kanya and paghahatian nila yon ng kanyang anak. Inheritances, adopted children's inheritance and dowry. These slides, sa inheritances, legitimate children of a father and mother will be inherited equally, not unless the father and mother showed a slight partiality by gifts, such as 2 to 3 taels or a jewel. Sa case naman ng adopted children, mas doble pa yung nare-receive nilang mana kaysa sa binayad sa kanilang pagpapaampon noon.
Let's talk about the worship of the Tagalogs. Before, in all other villages, there were no temples where they will sacrifice their offers to their gods, to their idols. Wala silang lugar kung saan sila nag-worship and nag-praise for adoration. Pero may tawag silang simbahan, which means a place of adoration or a temple. Dito sa simbahan, dito sila nagsa-celebrate ng kanilang festivals, like, ang tawag sa festival nila ay Pandot. This is festival where they celebrate at the house of the chief. This is where they worship. Dito sila nag-worship sa bahay ng chief. Tapos may tawag din tayong roof. Ang tawag sa roof nila ay sibi. Yun, constructed at each side of the house of the chief to protect people from being wet when it rained. So, para sa bahay natin, may sarili tayong mga atip para hindi tayo mabasa ng ulan. So, ganun din sa kanila doon. Next is sorihile. So, ginagamit din ito, one of the objects that they use. A small lamp which is located at the post of the chief's house. So, ito yung parang nagpapailaw sa bahay para hindi madilim. Next is naaganitos. The meaning of naaganitos is the whole barangay or family united to join in the worship of the idols. So, ang tawag sa kanila ay naaganitos. This is Bathala. What is the meaning of Bathala? Bathala means all-powerful being. They are maker of all things and they worship the most. So, ang mga tao noon, nag-worship sila at naniniwala sila sa Bathala. Ito. They also worship the sun, the moon, and the tala, which is the stars. No, sinasabi nila, ang sun daw ay beauty. Tapos kapag sasapit naman ng gabi, may kasiyahan, may rejoicing. Tapos sa stars naman, sinasabi nila na ang moon daw ay one of the exception of the morning star, which they call it tala. Dito ng kanilang sinasamba ay ang the Pleiades, also known as the 7 little goats. Tapos, ang Mapulon. Mapulon means the change of season. And Balatik, which is the greater bear. Unang panahon pa talaga, ang dami talaga nilang mga sinasamba, ang dami nilang mga idols. They possess a lot of idols, which called licha. Yung nakikita nyo sa image, nakikita nyo sa screen, yan. These are the images with different shapes. Yan, nakikita nyo, parang may mga muka na nakatingin sila sa taas. Isa din sa mga idols nila na kanilang sinasamba ay si Dian Masalanta. Dian Masalanta means the patron of lovers and of the generations. The idols called Lapati and Indianale or Indianale, it means the patrons of the cultivated lands and of the husbandry. We also have Aguris. Moreover, they tend to look at omens at what they encounter. For example, a bird called Tigmamanungin, which sings from the tree, they consider good or bad omens may come in their journey. So, isa din dito na kanilang ina-idolize ay itong ibon na to. Nakikita nyo. This is what you call titing mama nuguin. Let's move on to the feast. Feast is their manner of offering sacrifices. They offer to devil what they had to eat. So, kung ano kinakain nila, kina-offer nila sa devil, done in front of the idol. Now, what do you mean by katolonan? This is what you call the officiating priest. Devil sometimes liable to enter the body of the katolonan. Objects of the sacrifice were goat, fowls, and swine. Now, what is the reason, no? The reason for offering the sacrifices and adoration. Ano ba yung reason bakit sila nag-aalay? Bakit sila nagsasamba? Here we have the prosperous voyage. Ano ba meaning nun? Anong ibig sabihin nun? It means they are hoping for good progress, success, fortune, in the pursuit of anything desirable. Next, propitious result in war. Ano ba meaning ng propitious? Propitious. Propitious means success in war. Next is happy outcome in married life. This is very important. Lastly, the girl who had their monthly courses had their eyes blindfolded for 4 days and 4 nights. The old man said that they did this for girls to have a fortune of finding their husband. Kapag may dalaw yung mga babae, binablindfold sila for 4 days and 4 nights. Let's discuss the distinction of devils according to the priests. First, katolonan. This office was a horrible one among the natives. This officers is the horrible one among the natives because it is held ordinarily by the people with rank. This rule is being general in all islands. Next is manggagaway. Witches who deceived by pretending to heal the sick. These priests are capable of causing death. And it was said that this office was general to the island. Next is mangisalat, had the power of applying remedies to lovers that they would abandon and despise their own wife. Yung mga paring ito, may makapangyarihan sila, no, to apply such remedies to the lovers. And in fact, it can prevent them from having internal course with the latter. Next, the fourth called mankukulam. Its duty was to emit fire from himself at night. Next, we have hoklobal, which means without the use of medicine and by simply saluting or raising the hand, they kill whom they choose. This is another kind of witch. But if they decide to heal from those whom they made ill by their charms, they did so by using different charms. Moreover, but if they wish to destroy the house of some Indian hostiles, they will be able to do so without instrument. And this happens in Catanduanes Island. It is upper part of the Luzon. Next, we have silagan. If they saw anyone in white, they will tear out its liver and eat, thus causing his death. Grabe, kapag nakaputi ka, patay. They'll tear out its liver and eat. Grabe naman. Next is pagtatanggal. Her purpose was to show herself at night without his hair or entrails. These pretended to carry their head in different places. Parang hindi ka papanipaniwala. But, sabi ng mga natives, nakita daw nila. Pero sabi-sabi lang. Because the devil would maybe cause them to believe. Nangyayari ito siya sa Catanduanes. Next, we have osuang, or so-called sorcerer. They say that they have seen him fly, and that he murdered men and ate their flesh. This was among the Visayas Island. Among the Tagalogs, this doesn't exist. Lahat naman tayo, di ba, familiar sa manggagayuma? They made charms for lovers out of herbs, stones, and wood which would infuse the heart with love. So, di ba, familiar tayo sa manggagayuma? Yung mga witchcrafts na ginagamit for, marabong gayuma ng tao, lalo sa love. Next, we have sonat. Sonat is equivalent to preacher. It was his office to help one to die, at which time he predicted the salvation or condemnation of the soul. Next is babaylan. It is the spiritual leader of the tribe in pre-colonial Philippines. They are also soothsayers and predicts the future. These people predicted the future, and this office was general in all islands. Next is Boyogwain or Boyogoin. This signified a Kotki, a man whose nature inclined toward that of a woman. Now let's move on how they buried the deceased body. So first, the deceased was buried beside his house, and if they were a chief, he was placed beneath a little house of porch which they constructed for his purpose. It was the slaves' care to see if they were fed. So dati daw nililibing yung mga labi ng kanilang mga pamilya sa gilid ng bahay. Kapag naman chief, it is placed beneath a little house at saka may sarili siyang kabaong. Next, if the deceased is a warrior, so diba familiar kayo sa warrior, parang a soldier, ganun, warrior man tawag sa kanila natin. A living slave was tied beneath his body until it is wrecked the way he died. And for many days, the family of the dead man bewailed him until finally they wearied of it. In the Itas or Negrilos, which is the Negritos, had also a form of burial. May sarili din silang way of burial, but different. Yun. They dug a deep perpendicular hole and placed the deceased within it, leaving him upright with head or crown unburied, on top of which they put half a coconut, which was to serve him as a shield. Bongga. May shield sila. And they refer it to a coconut. Let's move on to the superstitious beliefs of the Tagalogs. Grabe, dati pa lang talaga, uso na talaga to. Kaya hanggang ngayon, meron pa rin tayong alam. And yung iba, pinaniniwalaan pa rin natin. First, we have Bivet and Pantoms. It means tikbalang. Sabi nila, if a woman died in a childbirth, she and the child experienced punishment. And that at night, she could be heard lamenting. Next, beliefs in aswang. Alam niyo naman yung aswang. Duwende, mga maliliit na tao. Kapre, mga malaking tao na nakikita sa puno. Mga tikbalang, mga kalahati lang yung katawan, tapos malaki yung pakpak. Mga tiyanak. Next, they also believes in magical power of amulet and charms such as anting-anting, kulang, gayuma, or love potion. Grabe, dati, usong-uso talaga itong mga ganito. But, because of the preaching of the Holy Gospel, these were all vanished.